Know someone who knows someone.
I like the way he says everything. That's a given. They say it's a flight. Not guilty.
Not guilty on one, count one. Count one should have been.
Oh, right.
Live from the Stream Center, breaking news on WFLA News now at 11.
Good morning, everybody. We are joined and taking a live look right now. Just in, the verdict is in the Diddy sex trafficking and racketeering charge. From Inner City Press, who is inside of the courtroom right now, the verdict reads: in a matter of U.S. versus Combs, count one, not guilty. Sex trafficking of Cassandra Ventura, not guilty. Transportation for prostitution, guilty. Jane, sex trafficking, according to the deputy, juror 5 said not guilty. Transportation for prostitution, guilty. So just now, we just learned that Sean Diddy Combs was found not guilty on the racketeering charge. That was the charge where he could face up to life in prison. Again, we're just getting this information from Matthew Russell Lee, who is a reporter we've been able to have on Rooted in Progress over the last couple of months. He's been covering this court case. He is inside of the courtroom, live tweeting right now. Again, if you're just joining us live on WFLA Now, again, in the matter of U.S. versus Combs, count one, which is that racketeering charge, he was found not guilty. Sex trafficking of Cassandra Ventura, not guilty. Transportation for prostitution, he was found guilty. This is interesting. This is the moment that we have all been waiting for. I'm going to bring in everyone who we have here in the WFLA Now Streaming Center. Terrence Middlebrooks, my co-host of Rooted in Progress, JB Buno at WFLA Now, and WFLA's Beth Rousseau. Just now getting this information, we learned yesterday, right? The jury was sent home. They came to a unanimous decision on 4 of the 5 charges. And at 10:20 in the morning today, we have a verdict.
And it's something that a lot of folks have been following so very closely, like you mentioned, Deanne. And there are some interesting choices made during this trial by the defense team, by Diddy's defense team. He chose not to testify. They did not call any witnesses. So these are things that went into this jury's decision. And again, we're learning about the verdict, the outcome right now. Obviously, very important. Gonna get back to all of us here so we can have a little bit of a chat about what this could mean moving forward. Now, as far as that jury, when they came back last night, they say that there was one count that they were hung up on. My understanding is that it was of the racketeering charge, which was really the big one in this case, y'all.
It was the big one. It was the one where he could have faced life in prison.
Right. And so even after the jury went in deliberation this morning, about an hour and a half later, we have a verdict. So just a case that we've all been following pretty closely, especially here on Rooted in Progress. We finally have a verdict.
Yeah, this is something that's, it'll be interesting to hear what Diddy's reaction was when those counts were being read and when the verdict was being read. I'm literally, shout out to Matthew. He does a phenomenal job with Inner City Press, who has kept us up to date. We'll have him live on our show a little bit later this evening. And he is literally live tweeting as things are happening in the courtroom. He shared how Diddy came into the courtroom once the jury gave that note out saying that a full verdict has been reached. He was surrounded by all 8 of his attorneys, and I'm sure they stood there as they read those charges. So again, the charges that he was found guilty for is transportation for prostitution.
And let's talk about the dramatic turn of events here, because it was roughly, it was yesterday evening that we were here in the Stream Center talking about how there was this deadlock that had occurred and that there was quote unquote unpersuadable views on that 5th count. And the judge decides to send the jury home for the night rather than extending the deliberation process way into the late evening hours, early night hours. They go home, and for whatever reason, there's some clarity that occurs overnight. And I think much to the surprise of a lot of people, within 90 or so minutes of really court resuming this morning, we have this verdict now on the 5th charge.
It seems like a short amount of time for a group of people who were so deadlocked that they sent that note to the judge for them to come back this morning and to have that revelation, whatever it was, where they were able to go in 90 minutes, come back and reach a decision. That's going to be talked about a lot with this, I think.
And let's talk about the pressure from, at least for me, I feel like there's a pressure from the jury, because the judge did mention on our show, Rooted in Progress, Matthew had mentioned that the judge wanted to wrap this up by
the 4th of July.
The 4th of July holiday weekend. And that was 3 weeks ago. We had Matthew on who said that. And here it is, July 2nd. And we're here with the verdict. So there was somewhat of a rush to get this done, if you feel.
So the judge actually just said, and this was his message to members of the jury, I asked the media not to question jurors about their deliberations. Jurors, you can contact our chambers. You gave up a lot these 10 weeks. It is inspiring. You work together, rain or shine. It's been a lot of rain in New York. And he said, you answered the call of public service. That should give us hope.
AP News reporting just now that Diddy pumped his fist subtly in satisfaction after being acquitted on the most serious charges. So from a Sean Diddy Combs standpoint, this is
A victory.
A victory.
Yeah,
and absolutely
avoiding the consequences on the most serious charges.
And we talk about wanting to hear from him, his reaction, obviously, but there's so many players in this.
Cassie.
That has really unfolded. People who took this stand. Obviously, the judge has said we don't necessarily or won't necessarily hear from the jurors because they don't have to talk to the media. But yes, his reaction, Cassie's reaction, all these folks who have taken part in this trial, I'm sure there are a lot of feelings that are swelling and rolling around the courtroom at this point upon hearing this verdict.
So let me hop in just really quickly because we're on Facebook Live, we're on YouTube Live. We want to get some comments going here. I know that Deanne and Terrence have really been following the story very closely on their show, Rooted in Progress. We want to get some comments going, so our team here is going to be paying very close attention to Facebook Live and YouTube Live specifically to get some comments going in the comment section. And also, let's just talk about the shot here in the center of your screen. This is, of course, the New York City courtroom as really the court contingent makes its way out At any moment, if anybody walks up to the podium, we'll be taking you to the press conferences here live outside of the courthouse here in New York City, New York.
Giving you some live information about what's happening in the courtroom right now. The judge said, I need to address a few matters with the lawyers, then I will come back to meet with you. Jurors all rise for the jury. Here's the thing. The jurors exit, but then Combs' attorney said he should be released, as in Diddy. Combs' attorney is currently arguing that he is no longer charged with sex trafficking or racketeering. His plane has been chartered. It's in Maui. He does not have access to his plane. This is his first conviction, and it's a prostitution offense. He should be released. What's happening right now in the courtroom, Diddy's attorneys are arguing for his immediate release. So we will see what happens within a matter of minutes as far as if the judge allows for him to get released. It just came down. Combs' attorney said his family is here and could sign a bond. He should be released today to go back and live at Two Star Island. The judge said, this is just coming up right now. I will hear from the government in a moment. Are you proposing he just walk outside now? Combs' attorney said yes. So right now it seems like they're arguing whether or not Combs is actually going to be released. And this would be very interesting, especially with this live shot that we're taking right now.
I was gonna say that's when we would get that reaction, reaction that really everybody has been waiting for since he didn't take this stand, since this trial started 7 weeks ago now.
Right, exactly. And this would be the first time that people we keep quoting Matthew, who's in the courtroom right now, where we're getting this information from. He said he looked like Grandpa Diddy. That's exactly how he described him.
Yeah, I think people are waiting just to see what this Grandpa Diddy looks like. The gray hair, the sketch drawings that we've seen over the past several weeks. You know, people are saying that, man, he's aged over the past few weeks.
So on that note, is the expectation, because I was just talking with our team here a little bit, is the expectation that I'm going to bring up the live shot here. There's a live picture here from New York. Is the expectation he's going to walk out of these doors?
From his attorney. That's what his attorney is arguing right now.
Sounds
arguing
like
for him to walk out of these doors, and that will be a moment, because if you missed the live stream yesterday, folks, there's behind this camera, there's an enormous contingent of people who've gathered, and many of them, Deanne, I think you were noting yesterday on the live stream that they are there in support of Diddy.
They were.
So this could be quite the scene in the next half hour or so as people start to emerge from the courtroom.
I would be interested as well. I mean, obviously we want to hear from him, but his attorneys made a very concerted effort to make sure that he didn't speak, obviously, or take the stand, as we don't necessarily know what his sentence will be for the one charge that he has been convicted of, whether or not they would allow him to speak, or if they would keep to the attorney speaking and then not allow him to actually give his reaction until everything is signed, sealed, delivered, done, you know?
So the judge said, quote, you are proposing $1 million bond. The judge is actually talking to Combs, one of his defense attorneys, and his attorney said yes, and travel to Florida, New York, and LA. AUSA Comey, the prosecution, has spoken and said the U.S. opposes his release. A person found guilty shall be detained until the judicial officer finds he is not likely to flee or be in danger, or be a danger rather. So it might take a minute for the judge to make his decision. So right now, again, if you're just joining us live, Sean Diddy Combs has been acquitted of sex trafficking and of racketeering charges. He has been found not guilty as it relates to that. However, he has been found guilty of prostitution. And right now in the courtroom, from court reporters tweeting live, Combs' attorneys are arguing for his immediate release.
And that's transportation of prostitution charges, which could result in imprisonment up to 10 to 30 years.
Okay.
So we're going to definitely follow the sentence
For sure.
and see, you know, and it could be several days, if not weeks, before they come back for sentencing. But yeah, this is breaking news. We're all in shock here right now. Again, that he's been acquitted on counts 1, 2, and I believe, help me out, Deanne, and 4 charges 1, 2, and 4 he's been acquitted on. Don't quote me on that, but
Okay.
he's only been
Sorry, I
charged.
was
Here's
reading.
the-
I was
here's
reading
the
a
transportation.
tweet.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I'm going to
Yeah,
go through
we're
the
all
list
kind of
here from the
getting
AP.
updates.
Count 1, racketeering conspiracy, not guilty.
Which was the
That
big
That's
one.
the big
Yes.
one, absolutely. Count 2, and I think this is staggered and ordered in how serious the crimes
Correct.
are.
Correct, yeah.
So count 2, sex trafficking of Cassandra Ventura, which yeah, this has all been read, but this is for people that have just joined, not guilty. Count 3, transportation to engage in prostitution, Cassandra Ventura, guilty. Count 4, sex trafficking of Jane. That's of course the name associated with that victim, not guilty. And then count 5, transportation engage in prostitution for Jane, being guilty. What we're gonna do now, folks, is we're gonna activate the comment now graphic, because we are gonna start to bring in now comments from our various social media platforms. And also too, if you want to kind of cut the line and get right on screen immediately, you can scan the QR code on the bottom left of your screen or go to wfla.com/comment. That kind of puts you first in line to have your comment be read here in the Stream Center. We're going to be getting your comments here momentarily.
I
also wanna
have an update from inside of the court, not to cut you off,
Yeah,
JB,
go right
for
ahead.
any folks wondering if Diddy is about to walk out these doors. So AUSA Comey, the prosecution, argued that the defendant faces a maximum sentence of 20 years, that is 20 years. Even while faced with this case, he assaulted Jane here in New York, preparing to surrender. He had drugs in his hotel room and was ready to commit the same offense. This just in from the judge: I am not going to resolve this second. I need to review the statutes. Ms. Comey, do you have a case in which bail was denied after a conviction under the Mann Act? You may confer and come back. We plan to be here the whole day. So it seems like they're going to take their time in making the decision on whether or not Diddy will be released.
And the reason that they're asking for that case is they have to see legally what the precedence is here, right? Like
Right.
in other cases that have been similar and someone has faced similar charges, the judge now has to look at, via the attorneys, they will give it to him if they do have that precedent, and see what has been set forth as like the baseline for this. Someone else who has been in similar circumstances, obviously not as high of stature, not as high, in the public eye as much, but other cases that have played out in a similar way, how have they gone ahead with these as far as letting them be released, as far as the bond? And then the judge will take that into consideration when considering when or if a bond should be set, now that we do have that verdict from the jurors.
I also want to point out, this is, I might have missed this because I've been talking with our team here behind the scenes. Very interesting. When the attorney for Diddy was arguing for his immediate release, mentioned that they want him to be able to return to Florida. So,
Yes, he said Florida, New York, and LA. Yeah.
Right. Thank you. I just, again, us being here in Florida and yes, him having a home, a mansion in Miami, of note, that one jumped off the page to me. So just doubling down on that. This is a live picture here, folks, in the center of your screen. People have not yet made it out of the courtroom just yet, obviously, because there's still a lot of activity in the courtroom itself. Any other notes before we start to get to some of the comments? Because there are people now getting comments in the queue.
Well, Deanne mentioned, you said that he does have a plane chartering from, I guess, Florida.
No, the plane is in Maui. He cannot access the plane anymore. So the defense attorney was trying to use that as a way of saying he can't go anywhere. But there's Delta and Southwest.
Well,
I'm sure he would
and I'm
find
sure
a
he
way.
has multiple planes.
and friends and families.
Yeah.
But my whole point of saying that is, it sounds like his team is pretty confident that he will walk today. So,
I mean, I think they're arguing.
They're arguing
his
for that. I
release.
think
Yeah.
they have to see what cases, precedent-wise, that they can come up with to present to the judge to really say, hey, this is somebody who isn't a threat and that isn't going to leave.
Right.
And then however
Or-
long the judge takes to decide that, that's another big piece of this as well.
Yeah, or technically commit the crime that he has now been committed of, which is prostitution.
Yes.
And that's one of the things that AUSA Comey just argued, that he did that in New York, like in the state that he is in right now. So to be released and being convicted of prostitution and transportation of prostitution, that's what they're arguing. So I guess the judge, as I said that he was not going to resolve this second. Shout out to him. He probably need a,
He said, I need a
he probably
nap.
need a little drink.
It's been
or
a
something.
long 7 weeks.
And then he's gonna come back and have his decision. JB, you want to bring in some of those comments that we're receiving?
So as we do this with the comments, I want the three of you to know that you can, if anything new pops in from the courtroom, please just interrupt me and let me know. To our commenters on Facebook Live, YouTube Live, the WFLA Smart TV app on Roku TV, Fire TV, Apple TV, all the platforms that we're on right now. You can comment and we'll bring you in from the comment section, or if you want to skip to the head of the line, go to WFLA.com/comment and you can submit your comment for free right there. Deborah says, it's P. Diddy. What did everyone expect? Money talks. And there's no doubt that the more money that you spend on your legal representation, the better chance that you're going to have of a defense that produces a result that you want. But there is a lot of folks out there right now that believe that Diddy's celebrity status aided in his ability to get out of the most serious charges.
And Deanne mentioned it too. You know, when they listened to the verdict, he had his team of 8 attorneys, Deanne. So just when they say money talks, JB, to your point, I mean, I'm sure the skill level of that defense team combined.
Right. Court has adjourned according to the AP. So what we're gonna do now. Court has adjourned, so this shot is now going to be way more active. More and more people are going to be coming out. As a reminder, as people do come out and step up to that podium there on the left side of your screen right next to Deanne, we'll be listening, and we'll bring up audio full to listen in for the post-trial press conferences. We'll undoubtedly be hearing from both sides.
And JB, we do have attorney Michelle Rayner. She's a regular on the Rooted in Progress show who will be able to join us. She's joining our... what's it called? Zoom live, if you want to bring her in for some expert analysis on these charges, what we're looking at as far as timing goes. And so she'll be joining us live as well, too, if we want to get her in and have that conversation with her.
On that, yep.
Perfect.
Let's get some other comments. Denise says they didn't prove the case. Defense was smart not putting him on stand and calling witnesses.
And that was one of my, JB, that was one of my questions with one of our experts on one of our episodes was, did they think that Diddy would take the stand? And Matthew's response was, if the defense was smart, he will not do it. So we see that he didn't. So
it's a big risk in any case to have a defendant take the stand, because you're then opening them up to that cross-examination from the prosecution. So obviously that was very strategic on their part, as was not calling any witnesses.
Right. I just getting some new information just prior to court adjourning 2 minutes ago. AUSA Comey said they were actually, she's aware of cases involving minors, but we intend to raise relevant conduct of sentencing, the drugs and violence. The judge then said, I'll like letters from each side. When can you give them? AUSA Comey said a few hours. And the judge says, I think that makes sense. Mr. Combs does not want to go back to the MDC. He is shaking his head. So 1 p.m. Letters, and we'll convene in the afternoon. So around 1 p.m., they're going to give both sides, both the defense and the prosecution, a couple of hours to basically create a letter stating and arguing their case and their side based on his release and the conviction. And we'll see what happens.
Yep, it's going to be another decision for the judge to make. Again, might not happen today, but might happen today.
Yeah.
In the courtroom itself, all the reporters, of course, honed in on Sean Diddy Combs and the AP reporting that now the moment the court was adjourned, that Diddy wiped his face, turned and kneeled at his chair and bowed his head in prayer. That was his reaction once the judge said court is adjourned. And court is adjourned in a situation. It's an enormous moment because it's the culmination, the end of a multi-month trial. One that has been really in the works for way longer than that. So clearly emotions from Diddy as that was read.
And obviously followed so closely by the media, so closely by so many people. So there's just a ton of emotions coming in on all sides of this, I'm sure. Likely won't hear from Diddy immediately now that court is adjourned. Obviously that won't happen, but there is a chance in this live picture that you see outside the courthouse that we could have some of these attorneys coming to speak to us. Also, we mentioned earlier, some of the witnesses who took the stand in this trial would be interested to hear their reaction to this verdict and the final outcome of all of this.
I think particularly what we have done since covering this when lawsuits, like just when the lawsuits dropped, right? And created that safe space of, at the end of the day, what it takes to be a victim, right? Or feel as though you are a victim, and to have the courage
Right. to
not only file a lawsuit, but go on stand, be vulnerable, share your truth. That is tough. And my hope is that none of that goes unnoticed, because at the end of the day, regardless of the charges, women have stories that they went through some things.
Yeah.
And that's something that I really hope never goes unnoticed.
Yeah. So with the outcome of this verdict, you definitely have to think about the victims here. Like you said, you used the word courage, and for them to go on stand in front of media to tell their story, something
In front
that
of
probably
their accuser.
in front of their accuser, and front him probably for the first time, if not, and now to see that this verdict has came out, and it's like, wow, slap in the face.
We're looking at a comment right now from Kaylee J. Rod saying, "This is disgusting. This is why women don't come forward. This is why there weren't more people against him coming forward."
That's the fear for a lot of these women who took this stand, whether or not a jury found whatever the outcome was jury-wise on this. Like you mentioned, Deanne, these are women who feel like they are victims in this case. And so for them to take this stand, not only in a courtroom in front of people, but in a case that is so contentious and followed by the media and such a public figure, I mean, that just amplifies this and the stress of them coming forward. So this outcome for them has to be just another blow to them.
And I think I'm gonna keep it real, right? Journalists or not, right? So Cassie is a victim, right? He did not face a domestic violence charge, but even Diddy's own attorneys admitted that that was domestic violence, period. Point blank, period. She is a victim. We all saw it. We all witnessed it. The jury saw it. By all means, she is definitely a victim. And I think that when I could only imagine how she felt when she found out what the verdict was. But the interesting part in this, and the interesting case in this, and it's one of the questions once we're able to get our attorney on that I want to ask, is this is something we've asked before. Can they go back and charge him with that kind of charge? Domestic violence. I know it's not federal. It's not federal.
Right.
Well, and
could they pursue that?
Here's a comment right on that. Erica says this is a comment now. Erica says he abused so many people over these last few years. I hope others come forward with information. Yeah, I mean, the idea or the notion that that other victims could be out there, other victims, whether it's domestic violence or worse, that's obviously a sentiment that's growing in our comment section as well.
And there's my understanding is that as more of these victims do come forward, no, he can't be charged in the case with the charges that he was just cleared of.
Right, obviously.
Obviously. But however, as more people come forward, if they do have the evidence to prove that there is a case to bring before a jury, then he could face more charges for those charges. So, for those women who have come forward, and if there are indeed more victims, then there's more cases to be had here, and this isn't the last time we'll hear of those domestic violence types of situations.
Well, you can assure that he's going to be hit with many civil lawsuits.
Civil lawsuits, absolutely.
For sure. I know we have criminal defense attorney Michelle Rayner standing by, who is joining us via Zoom, who we are happy to have joining us live. A constant guest here on Rooted in Progress. Michelle, I know you only have about 10 or 15 minutes with us this morning, so we're definitely going to get you in here as soon as possible, because I think there are so many legal questions as it relates to this right now,
so
right?
Many. So many.
Where do we go from here?
Right. And Michelle has been a great expert on our show, giving us all the feed and the education of from a law standpoint of what these allegations were.
Yeah, so, and honestly, where do we go from here?
Right.
Because, and I'm curious to even hear the breakdown of the transportation for prostitution charge. Now, we heard AUSA Comey say this is a charge where he could be facing up to 20 years in prison.
Right.
And so don't take this lightly now. Like, It sounds like Diddy's still gonna go to prison.
Right,
I asked Michelle, like, I'm like, could he
Is
not
he going
go
to be
prison?
running out those
Yeah,
doors?
Yeah, like
Maybe
what?
on bond,
What
but
do-
that doesn't mean
Yeah,
that when the sentencing comes that there's not going to be some time behind bars for
Or
him.
walking out with an ankle bracelet. So he's gonna be under tight.
Yeah.
Now,
surveillance.
per NBC News, the maximum penalty for each of those two counts, like we mentioned, is 10 years plus a fine. So, that just goes to what we've already said. And obviously, we can ask Michelle about it when she's on.
And we do have her now, and Terrence, she's going to be taking a spot on screen here in just a second. Let's bring in Michelle, and I believe, Michelle, that you are joining us via Zoom. Do you have us?
Hi, I'm here. How are y'all?
There
Hey,
she is.
hi.
Hey,
Thank you.
Michelle, so good to see you. You have been with us from the jump, from the very
Yes.
beginning. I remember you sitting right here in the Stream Center on Rooted in Progress
Yes.
when we were just going through a lawsuit. We now have a verdict. What's your reaction as it relates to the verdict that just came down?
First off, I'm speechless, right? I think that you can never know what a jury is considering or thinking when they're in the middle of deliberation, right? So one, it feels that they may have split the baby, right? And I think one of the conversations that we did have on Rooted in Progress, while a lot of the things that he has been accused of are egregious and immoral, do they rise to the level of a federal crime? You and I may say, of course, we can figure it out. Especially if you want, someone to be convicted of that. But I think what it seems to me the jury did, and kind of going over the Mann Act, is that, listen, all these other things, was his behavior abhorrent? 100%. Was it immoral? 100%. I tend to think was a little bit criminal. But the thing that I think that the prosecution was able to prove beyond and to the exclusion of every reasonable doubt is that he transported these two women across state lines for the purposes of, I believe the Mann Act says, immoral purposes, which focuses primarily on prostitution, sexual exploitation, and human trafficking. And I think it was probably Cassie's testimony and also Jane's testimony, and perhaps other corroborating witnesses' testimony that was able to seal that.
Wow. So that's the charge that Diddy was convicted of, the transportation of prostitution. I think one of our biggest questions now is what happens next when we're talking about sentencing. I don't know if you've heard this information yet, but right before they got adjourned, AUSA Comey and Diddy's attorney, they were arguing on his release. What are your thoughts on that?
Listen, I would be very surprised if he would be released on bond. The reason I would be surprised if he would be released on bond is that he wasn't out for pretrial release to begin with, right? That is a decision that's in the discretion of the judge. The judge gets to decide, hey, while, sentencing is pending, if he's going to be released. I would be surprised if a judge will let him out. One, he's a flight risk. Period. Full stop. Yes, you can take his passport. You can take all of his other things. You can even put a GPS ankle monitor on him. But he's an incredibly rich, wealthy man with access to all the things that you would think one would need in order to be able to flee the country, right? Obviously, they believe he's a criminal, right? They believe he, was involved in, racketeering and all these other things. So I would be surprised if a judge would grant a release pending sentencing. Wow. Especially since he's just been in for, well over a year. What's the purpose now? So he can go get his affairs in order? Okay. Okay. I would be very, very, very surprised if a judge were to do that pending sentencing, knowing if he felt he was a flight risk before, if he felt that he was going to tamper with witnesses before, what would be the purpose to allow him to be released now?
Michelle, welcome. How are you?
Hey, Terrence. How are you, friend?
I'm well. What was your opinion on this, or basically, what was your reaction on this? Excuse me.
So I'm hitting do not disturb right now because I'm getting a lot of text messages from people. What do you think about this? And I'm like, I'm on WFLA. Go watch right now.
And I just asked that question. So
Period.
tell them to tune in. You'll get the answer.
Tune in, you'll get the answer. So I only have to say it once. you know, I I'm actually not surprised. I think that, and I think that we've had this discussion. I thought that it was going to be a very um, difficult for the prosecution to prove some of the other counts, specifically the racketeering, the criminal enterprise. Um, I did not think, and I knew, and this is what I felt, what was going to happen. And not to make light of it, y'all remember the meme with Denzel Washington? We talk about, I'm leaving here with something. That's how I feel like
Right.
the prosecution was like, we're leaving here with something. And I think that while it's probably not everything that they wanted,
It's something.
20 years, I mean, a jury has said, you're guilty of something,
Right.
sir.
Right.
Um, and maybe we can't get you to the racketeering and some of the other things, but you're guilty of something. So I knew he was going to be found guilty. I didn't believe it was going to be the whole breadth of the situation.
Right.
So what about this whole domestic violence thing, right? Can they go back? And I think we've talked about this before, but I don't remember what your response was, Michelle. Can Diddy be charged with a state crime such as domestic violence?
He can, 100%. I mean, right now I have a client right now that was charged and convicted federally, and is being charged by the state for the same exact crime, same exact circumstance, and that is not double jeopardy.
Do you think we'll see that?
It depends. It depends, where that charge would be brought, if it would be brought in California, if it would be brought in New York, how, if there's a DA or a state attorney that wants to make a name for themselves, and that feels that this is an easy win, that there's enough. I mean, also you have to think about the statute of limitations, in whatever state that charge may be brought. If the statute of limitations is applicable, if there's no statute of limitations, or if there's a longer statute of limitations, I'm thinking specifically of, I think it was 2016 with Cassie, right?
Right.
If the statute of limitations is, not applicable in California, I mean, you could see that possibly happening, coming out of these same facts and circumstances. So it would
Yeah.
not be double jeopardy in this instance.
Wow.
We have a few more minutes before the top of the 11 o'clock news, which we're going to be simulcasting here on all platforms, including on WFLA News Channel 8, the NBC station, of course, in Tampa, Florida. Michelle Rayner joining us here on Zoom. Great to have her. Look, we got a comment here from WFLA.com/comment. If you submit your comment there, you can get right to the front of the line, folks, and we'll get your comments animated on screen. And Michelle, this is a perfect question for you. Shellable says, how is transportation of prostitution different than sex trafficking? A great question while we have a legal expert here on stream.
I think that that's a really great question. I think what the sex trafficking, the transportation, the Mann Act is more of the facilitation of it, right? And instead of the actual act, and it went from my understanding of kind of reading the statute super quickly, and just I can go back to it.
I'm sorry, Michelle, to interrupt. We've got some folks leaving the courtroom. We're just going to
His
listen
mother
in here
just
for a
walked
second.
out. His kids just walked out. They're currently walking out right now.
Clearly not stopping by the mics to say anything. That doesn't mean that the attorneys who leave the courtroom
And I have another
won't.
shot here that I'm going to bring in here momentarily. Stand by. Just into the stream center moments ago. Check out this shot. And we'll try to bring up audio here as well.
Again, you're seeing a video of the amount of press and support of Diddy there.
And this just really goes
Outside the
to
courtroom.
show what a spectacle this trial has been. Past 7 weeks that this has been going on. This media, the community, the country has been following it. This is why this is such a major deal that this verdict is in, and that we now know the outcome.
And this is a live feed, folks. Viewer discretion advised. Anybody could be shouting anything at any moment. We're tapping into this live feed from right outside the New York City courtroom as Diddy's family and inner circle leaving court and now being escorted via transportation away from the courthouse.
As we watch and see that his family has walked out, they are entering their vehicles right now. I do want to be cognizant. Michelle, I know you only have about 2 more minutes with us. If you wanted to answer that question from our viewer before you leave us, how is transportation of prostitution different than sex trafficking?
So I think, and just I wanted to make sure that I was accurate on it. So, while we were watching this, I looked it up. So the Mann Act is specifically about transportation. And while it may be a consensual nature of what occurred, it is still against the law to prostitution is still against the law. So it's the transportation, it's the immoral act. It does have components of sex trafficking, where sex trafficking is specifically about the coercive nature of it and the fraudulent force nature of it. So that's kind of the balance. Even though there may have been, and I don't think it was, but let's just say for argument's sake, people say that Cassie was consenting to this, Jane was consenting to it. Prostitution is still illegal, regardless of, you can't consent to something that is illegal. So it's the transportation of it versus sex trafficking is the actual coercive nature of it.
All right, I have to hop in here because, Michelle, unless you're staying for a few more minutes, we have to get ready for the top of the 11 o'clock news.
I have a meeting at 11, but I will text if I can come back. But I appreciate
Michelle, we'll see you for Rooted in Progress tonight at 7. We appreciate you.
Thank you, Michelle.
At 7. Take care.
All right, everybody. We're about to go into an automated countdown for the 11 o'clock news. We really thank Michelle there for joining us. Everybody stand by for WFLA News now at 11. This is going to be simulcast on all platforms, including on WFLA News Channel 8. It'll be myself, Deanne King, Beth Russo, Terrence Middlebrooks, and Juliana Mejia is going to be joining us with weather in just a bit. But we'll continue our live coverage of the Diddy trial and the Diddy verdict here momentarily. Stand by.
Live from the Stream Center, breaking news on WFLA News now at 11.
A verdict out of New York City receiving reaction around the world as Sean Diddy Combs found not guilty of sex trafficking and racketeering, but convicted of a prostitution offense. A total of 2 guilty verdicts returned by the jury in New York City within the last hour. We are here live across all platforms on WFLA News Channel 8 and WFLA's streaming platforms. Good morning to you, everybody. JB Buno, Deanne King, Beth Russo, Terrence Middlebrooks here with you in the WFLA Stream Center. Deanne, reaction is pouring in, but let's get to the particulars of what we have learned because this has been noted as shocking to many.
Yeah, this is definitely some shocking news, having covered this from its inception when it started with just a lawsuit here, and now we are hearing the actual verdict come in again to go down on the charges that took place in a matter of U.S. versus Sean Combs. Count 1, which was the racketeering charge where he could have faced life in prison. He was found not guilty. Sex trafficking of Cassie Ventura, his ex-girlfriend that many of us know, not guilty. Transportation of prostitution, guilty. He was found not guilty of sex trafficking trafficking in the matter of Jane, and then he was found guilty for the transportation of prostitution in the matter of Jane. According to AUSA Comey, who worked for the prosecution, he is facing up to 20 years in prison. It would be 10 years or up to 10 years based on each prostitution charge. Lots coming in right now.
Yeah. And what has happened at this hour is that now that we do have the verdict, the judges, obviously Diddy's attorneys, are going to be arguing that he should be released on bond and bail out. They wanted him to walk out immediately after this verdict came down. The judge said, we're going to take a second. They've adjourned. And what's going to happen now is attorneys on both sides are going to have a chance to write a letter to the judge and let him know their case for either, in Diddy's case, being out on bond, released on bond, and then for the prosecution's case, letting everybody know this is why they think he should remain in custody and why they think that it would not be a good idea if he were to leave.
All right, so come with me for a second. We're going to take you around all the live feeds by hitting the touchscreen here in the Stream Center. First up, this is the main shot right outside the New York City courtroom that we opened the show with. We are anticipating at any moment the legal contingent out of the courtroom to make their way to that podium there on the left and to speak and react to the verdict coming down by the jury. And then we're going to take you here around to the press pool shot. And here we have a News Nation correspondent who's peeking around, trying to get any shot possible of Diddy's family and inner circle that just left a short time ago in that black van that is now leaving the New York City courtroom. So there's a lot of feeds coming in from the press pool, but there is a big crowd that has gathered outside the courthouse, and many of them in support of Sean Diddy Combs. If we see anything here on the touchscreen, we'll bring it up from the Stream Center and show everybody and take you right to the live feed in question.
Yeah, a lot of mixed emotions coming in, JB, from those who are in support of Diddy and, of course, those that are not. And so, therefore, shocking results in the verdict, and a lot of people are upset.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Dan.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I think we've seen mixed reaction, because even yesterday when we were live, and when they reached that partial verdict, we heard a lot of people when Diddy's mom came out, when his sons came out, his daughters, the twins came out, they were just screaming, "Black excellence! We're so proud of you. You look beautiful." There was a lot of support for the family, and then for folks who have not learned this information yet, we've learned that when Diddy heard that he was found not guilty of racketeering and sex trafficking, it was a fist pump, and he kind of like tilted his head down, and bowed as though he was getting ready to pray. So you could only imagine there are several sides to this, y'all. Yep. You got Diddy's side and how he's feeling right now. And as I am going to call them, you have victims. Yep. You have victims who are also on the other side, who we don't know how they feel right now. You think of Cassie Ventura, this whole case was wrapped around Cassie.
Speaking of Cassie, a statement just came in from her lawyer. I'm going to read it here. Okay. A lawyer for the R&B singer, who of course previously dated Combs, testified that he beat and raped her. The statement reads from Cassie's lawyer: although the jury did not find Combs guilty of sex trafficking Cassie beyond a reasonable doubt, she paved the way for a jury to find him guilty of transportation to engage in prostitution. By coming forward with her experience, Cassie has left an indelible mark on both the entertainment industry and the fight for justice. End statement from Cassie's
very well said.
Attorney Douglas Wade Dorr.
If you've been following this case from the start to the finish, regardless of what you think, wrong is wrong, right? Wrong is wrong. We've seen evidence over and over again of, what type of person Diddy is.
Yeah, and we did just have, when we were on the stream a little while ago, an attorney that is often on with Rooted in Progress, as we've been following along this case. There could be other charges brought when it comes to domestic violence, and I want to just talk a little bit more about those charges that he was convicted of in federal court right now. Transportation is the facilitation, and so the attorney that we spoke with said that there are some elements of sex trafficking in that charge. Right. Okay, but this is on a federal level. So there could be civil lawsuits that result from this. There could also be charges that come on a state level. Now, there are a number of different elements that play into that. But as that statement just said from Cassie's attorney, she has paved the way for potentially other victims, women who feel they are victims, to come forward. So this is movement in this case, obviously the outcome of this federal trial, but we could hear more about this on a different level in the coming weeks, months, even years.
Let me point out this is an interactive broadcast, folks. We are getting in a lot of comments right now on WFLA.com/comment, and I'd like to bring in some of those comments. But first, if you scan the QR code that you're going to see animate here in the bottom left-hand portion of your screen, you can again get right to the front of the queue, and we'll animate your comments on screen just like this. From Rosalind saying, I can only imagine how difficult it was for the jury to decide a difficult case. Let's not forget that it was just yesterday evening that the jury was deadlocked on on that fifth and most serious offense, and here we now have really within a couple of hours of not really even just an hour or so deliberating. This morning we have a full and complete verdict,
and we don't know that we will hear from jurors because the judge specifically said to jury members, you do not have to talk to the media. Obviously, those are some of the folks who you would want to hear from and understand exactly what went into the decision.
Oh, we will. Well, I no doubt
no
about
doubt
it.
from Dan.
I think eventually, right? Time heals all, and I think all of this information is just coming in. We're still waiting for the judge. Still doesn't even know what he wants to do with Diddy right now. He was still convicted of a crime, right, and of a prostitution charge. So this is still very serious. But at the same time, right, those two big ticket items, racketeering, sex trafficking, he was found not guilty. So they do have to prove their point at this point and figure out, hey, what happens next from here?
And I think difficult is the right word to use in this case because of the fact of the charges that were presented to Diddy. But yet the evidence showed something completely different. So for them to have to go back in this room and deliberate based on the evidence that was shown and based on the witnesses that stood up there and gave their testimony, it turned out to be a pretty difficult case. And I'm sure that sitting back there in that deliberation room was a very tough decision.
I'm going to hop in here really quickly, folks, and just remind our audience that we're paying a close attention to the live feeds here. There's an enormous crowd gathered outside the courtroom. They are all now waiting for someone to appear right here at this podium. So the attorneys for both sides have not made their way out of the courtroom just yet.
They're working.
There's letters.
That's right.
Yeah, they're working right now.
And also what we normally see in a situation like this is the attorneys for both sides. And look, they're very large groups of attorneys on both sides. They're probably assembling right now to talk about exactly what the message is going to be to the world, because this is not just a national story. This is an international story that people are honed in on, and so they're probably just getting the message right as to what they're going to deliver at the podium. The moment that we see activity at the podium, the moment that we see the attorneys make their way out of the courtroom here, we'll be taking you to this shot live.
And I would suspect that since they are going to be reconvening at, what did you say, 1 o'clock this afternoon, that might be the time after that is all said and done when we actually hear from them. Because remember, they have to go put these letters together. They have to find precedents as far as cases go that they can use as evidence to present to the judge as to why he should or shouldn't be held moving forward. So they have a lot of work still cut out for them to do. I'm sure they're taking a beat, as is the judge. Deanne, you mentioned he said, I'm not deciding anything right this second.
And I mean, because he been through it too.
Yeah,
He's been through it along with everybody else.
7 weeks.
And I think what we have to realize, we've had the pleasure of having Matthew Russell Lee, who has been in the courtroom every day, as he put it, looking Grandpa Diddy right in the face every single day, covering this and going through his live tweets and the information as it was unfolding. The judge actually tasked the attorneys with going back and bringing back cases that can actually prove whether or not he can be released at this time. So I know we're waiting for the attorneys to come out right about now, but I think they have their hands full as well, because not only are they working on defending their side, whether it be the prosecution or the defense, right? But they're also probably, like you said, JB, curating some kind of response to the entire world as it relates to what just took place.
Because the world will be watching.
Absolutely.
And a lot of people are talking online, including in our comment section. Bryant sending in this comment to WFLA News Now at 11. Will the victims be offered any protection?
Wow.
These people
question.
are now vulnerable to
very great
retaliation. There's this belief and a belief that's likely rooted in reality reality,
Right.
and is that Sean Diddy Combs is a very powerful person.
Correct.
And so a lot of attention in our comment section being focused to how the victims get protection from this
and
point
how
forward.
they move forward from here. I said this earlier when the verdict just came down. At the end of the day, we cannot forget that there are victims involved here, and they now have to pick up the pieces and go on about their lives, and we don't know what happens to them from here on out.
Right.
Emotionally and physically.
Right. And I think when you look at what took place during the trial within itself, a lot of these victims and so-called victims, they talked about how they kind of were already retaliated against. So imagine what they feel now
Right.
after hearing this verdict. So very good question from our viewer there.
That's
right.
something we're gonna have to work to find out, I think, in the coming days.
Oh, and we're going to be working, I'm sure,
Obviously, yeah.
Deanne and Terrence are
Yeah.
going to be on Rooted in Progress quite a bit. Our coverage continues in just a moment. For those of you just joining us, we are simulcasting right now across all platforms, including on WFLA News Channel 8, so we'll be taking a quick step away, and then meteorologist Juliana Mejia is going to be joining us with our forecast here in just a minute. But please don't go anywhere, because our coverage of the verdict of Sean Diddy Combs continues in just a little bit. But as we noted, yeah, it's scallop season, and storms are brewing today also as well in Tampa Bay. We'll be back in just a moment. It is.
You're watching WFLA News now at 11 from the Stream Center.
Welcome back into the Stream Center here. JB Buno, Deanne King. I'm Beth Russo. We're continuing to monitor the outcome of the Diddy trial. We know that he has been acquitted of the most serious charges when it comes to that, but he has been convicted of a prostitution-related offense. That is the video you're seeing on your screen right now. I want to bring you a little bit closer to home, though, right now. Bring in meteorologist Juliana Mejia. Juliana, there's some storms that we have on our hands today.
Yes, yeah, been a little bit of a gloomy, kind of wet start for portions of the area already. Off to, again, that stormier start for some. There's satellite and radar right now looping over the last little while, where really the coastline has been kind of getting the bullseye, especially our northernmost counties, Citrus County, Hernando County, and over into Pasco. You can see passing downpours. Luckily, not terribly too much in the way of lightning so far today, but I think that this moisture just continues to slide in from the Gulf and across the area. Expect developing showers to just continue into the midday. There's also Hillsborough, Pinellas County with some passing downpours. Saw some of this pass through near the MacDill Air Force Base, and Sarasota County now also getting in on the action. A lot of this already, though, drifting well inland. So now switching gears and taking a live look. You can see all that tropical moisture across the region, but here's a live look at the passing cloud cover. I do think that it is going to be a kind of dreary day, the soaker of a day as well. 81 degrees, feeling the mugginess. Rounds of rain will continue. Not as hot, though, this afternoon because of the rain, because of the cloud cover tapping out around the mid and upper 80s. Definitely feeling muggy, though, with rain lingering throughout most of this evening into the later evening hours as well. You can kind of get an idea of the coverage for today. Pretty widespread, and especially into tomorrow, looking particularly widespread with multiple rounds of on and off showering and storms, thanks to this area of low pressure that we're monitoring for potential tropical development. The National Hurricane Center this morning, or rather later last night, upgraded this to about a 40% chance over the next 7 days of developing into potentially a tropical depression. Models that do try to organize this system really do still keep this weak. So over the next 2 days, you see it's still at 0%. And with that, that means we're looking to Friday and Saturday for the chance of any organized or maybe named system. So now I want to switch gears and check in. There we go with current satellite and radar to show you the setup, tracking this cold front sliding across the southeast. As we look ahead to tomorrow, that's where this real area of low pressure may try to spin off of this cold front. However, typically when low pressure systems are attached to frontal boundaries, they are not considered tropical. Therefore, it could be subtropical. Looking at a wet 4th of July, but fortunately keeping more of a typical afternoon kind of pattern for Friday, thanks to winds flipping and coming more offshore. So through the weekend today, rounds of heavy rain as well as into tomorrow. Looks like hopefully the rain should clear by about 8-9 o'clock for the 4th of July, which could be good news for those of us trying to enjoy some fireworks and celebrations. Mainly scattered showers and storms as we get back into a more normal summertime pattern heading into this weekend. As you get an idea of the rain coverage, I know I've had some questions asked about drought. Yes, areas like Tampa and really much of our viewing area is still experiencing drought. This rainfall will certainly likely combat, if not completely eradicate, all of that drought. However, tracking a chance and elevated risk of flooding today, tomorrow, and then even into Friday, we keep up with the risk of possible flooding across the viewing area. So that is going to be an issue because we're looking at 4 to upwards of 6 inches of rain compared to, we're running a 2.5 inch deficit in areas like Tampa. So it's going to just be a little too much rain a little too quickly.
Yeah.
For me, it's all about 4th of July.
I know. But it's Florida. What can you do about it?
But we do have that little break just for fireworks, she said, right?
Maybe.
Right now, it looks like it. Yes, it is a big.
Side.
You have to keep an eye on the forecast as our high-res models, as we get closer to Friday. But right now, it does look promising.
All right, if it rains on 4th of July, it's Juliana Mejia's fault. Coming up next, we continue our live coverage of the fallout of the Diddy verdict that just came in about an hour ago. We'll have more on that after the break.
Welcome back to WFLA News now at 11 across all platforms, continuing to cover the news being just consumed around the world right now and reaction coming in across social media. Sean Diddy Combs facing 20 years in prison after the most serious charges, rendering a not guilty verdict from the jury. It's just news that really is widespread and being consumed just about everywhere. Let's bring in our entire panel here once again, including Terrence Middlebrooks, Beth Russo, Deanne King. I'm JB Buno. We've been bringing in your comments and questions on WFLA.com/comment. You can scan the QR code there in the bottom left-hand portion of your screen if you'd like to be featured on our program. Let's get to some of those comments. George says, do you think the prosecution overcharged Diddy, and when's the civil case coming? And there's always the potential for civil lawsuits in the aftermath of a there's always the potential for civil lawsuits in a case like this. But
Can I say it plainly? I think the prosecution shot they shot.
Yeah.
I think the prosecution shot for what the highest of the high that they could potentially try when it comes to charges and incidents like this. And I think they gave it their all. I think they went after, as big of a charge as they possibly could, even though it was like,
evidence-wise, maybe not the strongest.
They went in there with confidence and gusto and gave it all they got. That's my opinion.
Well, and federally, this is on a federal level. Keep in mind, there could be other state level charges in addition to civil cases that could come out of this as well.
Yeah, I'm thinking, my opinion is, I don't think the prosecution tried hard enough. I'm not an expert. I'm not a legal expert by no means whatsoever, but I just really felt like, based on the evidence that we saw the hotel footage of the abuse well before this case started. And then when the charges came out, I was a big shock.
We have another comment here from Danny saying that there's no winners in this sordid case. There's been irreversible damage all around. Again, we're taking your comments right now on WFLA.com/comment. So
very well said, Dan.
Yes.
Very well said, Dan. You've been talking about this all along. There are victims, people who perceive themselves as victims, regardless of the outcome of this case. I'm looking on X right now. Cassie is trending right now. Obviously, very emotional for her.
Maybe this is a conversation. We'll take this conversation into our next segment of coverage on the WFLA app. Canty saying, was justice served today? The defense team was on point from day one. Was justice served today? I mean, so look, it's going to come down to the opinions of our commenters, right?
That is true.
Court of public opinion.
This is a tough one. I'm looking forward to hearing from Matthew Russell Lee, who will be live on Rooted in Progress. He was inside of the courtroom when that verdict came down. We'll have him here in the Stream Center.
Yes, tonight at 7 p.m. Yep, tune in, folks.
We look forward to, of course, Rooted in Progress. Our coverage continues on WFLA.com, the WFLA app. Thanks for joining us. And welcome back to those of you still joining us here on WFLA.com, the WFLA app. Our coverage plan now is contingent upon this shot. We are, of course...
Check.
Oh, well,
Mic check?
someone doing a mic check.
Someone's getting ready.
Check 1, 2.
Yeah.
The anticipation for there being...
Talk from a lawyer in this talking voice, normal talking volume.
Ignore this
Pretend
guy.
I'm a
We're gonna bring this guy down.
Yeah.
So here's the expectation. At some point when court was adjourned by the judge, but when we actually have court, the proceedings and basically all the final details that they have to get wrapped up here. Once that's all wrapped, that's when they'll exit the courthouse. That's when, of course, we'll have press conferences, really reaction from the attorneys on both sides, and that's when our streaming coverage will continue. Deanne, Beth, Terrence?
And that could be at any time, JB. That could be here in a few minutes. That could be tomorrow evening. So we're just anticipating that we're going to get folks walking out that door here soon.
That could be, and like we said, court reconvening at 1 o'clock. Should a decision be made then after those attorneys present each of their sides as to whether or not Diddy should be let out on bail? That could be decided today. It could be decided tomorrow. That's up to the judge's purview. But I feel personally that is when we will hear from the attorneys, is once that decision has been made and there's sort of an exclamation point at this juncture.
Well, I don't even, to add to that, Beth, as far as an exclamation point, I really feel like they can't give you particularly from the prosecution side, I don't think they can give you a holistic response if Diddy gets released. You know what I'm saying? So if they speak now, I think it's like, here's how we feel for now.
Yeah.
But this is how we'll feel.
Yeah,
with ellipses. I think they have to give kind of a holistic response on how they really feel on whether or not. I think it'll be interesting to hear if they think justice was served.
Well, and the other thing that will be really interesting is if the judge should say, sure, we'll put an ankle monitor on him or whatever measure and let him go free. Will we hear from him? I mean, if he's walking out and there's a chance that we might not, right? But I'm just saying, you can't, I agree with you, give a holistic response to what the outcome is, because for Diddy's attorneys, I think a true win would be him out on bond after this verdict that has just come down.
So,
go ahead, Jimmy.
No, because I'm going to wrap. So
I was just going to say, I'm curious to see also then what's our timeline for sentencing.
Right.
This case is far from over, though. It is. I mean, we still have a while, so you know.
For sure,
absolutely. Yeah. There's so many elements.
Right.
I think there will definitely be some fallout and some other various things that happen with this. But I think at least for now we see what happens with Diddy if he remains in jail until sentencing or not. And I think it'll be curious to see what that timeline looks like and what the sentence is.
Right.
Well, I'd really just like to take a moment to thank Deanne, Terrence, Beth, of course, for an extended coverage here on all of our platforms. This is going to wrap up our coverage for now. We're going to be monitoring this shot closely, the activity that is going on inside the courthouse itself. The attorneys have not yet emerged. That's going to be a big moment. Will Sean Diddy Combs be walking out these doors? It seems as if right now that appears to be a less likely scenario, but of course we'll be finding out more details as the afternoon progresses. We really appreciate you watching here on WFLA News Now at 11. At 11, we'll be taking a little bit of a break here away from the microphones, but our coverage resumes once we have basically court done for the day and we have the attorneys speaking at the podiums. Thanks so much for joining us, folks. We'll see you soon.